She was already halfway through a glass of red when I stepped inside, shoes still on, coat barely off, dinner on the table like it was some kind of trap. She never cooked on Saturdays, never wore perfume unless someone was watching, and she damn sure never poured the expensive bottle unless she was trying to make a point. I hung up my jacket, didn't ask where she'd been, didn't comment on the new lipstick, the too short dress, or the glitter on her collarbone that sure as hell wasn't there this morning when she left for errands. I just sat, looked at the plate in front of me. Roast, green beans, too much salt. It felt like eating someone else's apology. 10 minutes into the meal, she set her wine down with a smug little smirk and said it. I had a one-night thing, and I'd do it again. My fork stopped midair. I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't ashamed, not nervous, not even defiant, just amused, like she was reading a headline off her phone, like I was supposed to break something, shout, beg, maybe even cry. I didn't. I set the fork down gently on the napkin, took one last bite of that dry-ass roast, chewed slowly. She waited, probably rehearsed this in her head, how she'd drop the bomb, watch me crumble, maybe even feel powerful again for 5 minutes. She tilted her head. Come on, say something dramatic. I stood, walked my plate to the sink, rinsed it, dried it, placed it in the cabinet. Behind me, she scoffed. Oh, so now you're going to do that silent treatment thing? Grow up, Marcus. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. Her reflection was in the microwave door, leaned back in her chair like she'd won something, like she thought the real punishment was in me pretending I didn't care. But I did care. Not about the intimacy. Not really. Not anymore. It was how easily she weaponized it, like it meant nothing, like I meant nothing. Just a prop at her dinner theater. I wiped the counter, then walked to the bedroom. I didn't pack. I didn't pace. I didn't even close the door behind me. I just lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling while she clanged dishes and muttered in the kitchen, probably hoping I'd come storming back in and give her the performance she wanted. Instead, I thought about patterns. For 23 years, I'd seen the signs. Little things. Missed birthdays. Empty I love yous, eye rolls during conversations. She stopped using my name when she spoke to me, started calling me he in front of friends, then that man, eventually just silence. And I stayed. For the kids, for the mortgage, for the pathetic hope that maybe it was just a phase, that maybe if I worked harder, made more, stayed quiet longer, she'd notice again. But I wasn't quiet because I was weak. I was quiet because I was preparing. A few months back, I started making backups of everything. Emails, joint account records, call logs, security camera footage from the front porch. She never remembered those were synced to my cloud. I started talking to people. Not loudly, not emotionally, just calmly, preemptively. I wasn't sure I'd ever need the folder I called contingency, but I kept adding to it, just in case. That night I opened that folder, and for those of you listening, yeah, more than 97% of you aren't subscribed. I know you're here for the story, but hitting that subscribe button, it lets us keep telling the ones that matter, the real ones, the ones like this. I printed 3 documents, transferred small amounts from the joint account into a legally separate fund I'd established a year ago under my mother's name, which she never even remembered, scheduled a courier, wrote 2 notes, folded them perfectly, sealed them in envelopes, and tucked them in my briefcase. Then I slept, peacefully. No guilt, no fury. In the morning, she'd expect coffee. Instead, she'd get clarity. Sundays used to follow a script. I'd wake first, grind the beans by hand, like she liked. Press the coffee slow, steam curling up from the French press while I made her a breakfast she never ate more than 2 bites of. The clink of porcelain was her cue to yawn, stretch dramatically, and wander into the kitchen barefoot, pretending we were still a couple. That morning, she stayed in bed. She probably thought I was downstairs preparing her cappuccino with the cinnamon dusting she always made a fuss about. She probably thought I was still in my default setting, compliant, domesticated, too predictable to be dangerous. But when she didn't hear the grinder or the clatter of pans or the soft jazz she used to mock me for playing on Sunday mornings, she must have started wondering. By the time she wandered down, robe loose, hair messy, but styled enough to look naturally undone, I was standing at the kitchen counter, fully dressed, slacks, blazer, cufflinks, briefcase zipped, shoes polished, car keys already in hand. She blinked. "Where are you going?" I didn't answer that, just looked at her once, really looked, and said, "The password to the joint account has been changed." She tilted her head, smirked. "Excuse me?" No emotion in my voice. "Try it. She opened her mouth, maybe to insult me, maybe to say something performative. But I was already walking past her. I didn't slam the door, didn't even close it loudly, just stepped into the morning like a man late for a meeting that didn't include her. She called once, then twice. No answer. She sat at the counter, turned her phone screen toward her face like it had betrayed her. Incorrect password. Try again. Access denied. She tried the recovery email, didn't go to her inbox. She looked around, like the walls might give her a hint, like my ghost might rise up from the coffee maker and explain myself. She texted me, "What the hell is going on? You're being dramatic. I don't have time for this. Fix the account." I didn't reply. At 11:02 a.m., she called the bank. The rep told her politely that, per Mr. Rhodes' instruction, joint access was temporarily frozen pending asset review. She asked what that meant. They told her to consult her legal counsel. She laughed, loud enough the neighbor probably heard. "Marcus doesn't have a lawyer," she scoffed. "He can't even cancel a gym membership without help." But I did, and I'd had one for over a year now. Quietly, efficiently, the same way I started paying attention when she thought I was just tuning her out. By noon, she'd tried 3 different ways to reset the login. All failed. Her spa membership auto draft bounced. So did the wine club. A notification popped up on her phone from the car loan app. Payment failed. The rituals were cracking. Sunday brunch with the girls canceled because her card was flagged. The matching post about self-care Sundays with the mimosa and avocado toast skipped. No one wants to post about cold coffee and locked accounts. At 2 p.m., she tried to FaceTime me. I declined twice. Then I turned on Do Not Disturb. She sat in that kitchen, in that robe, in a silence that had a different weight now. It wasn't passive anymore. It was deliberate, because this time the silence wasn't surrender. It was the beginning of removal, strategic, surgical, long overdue. She always thought I was too passive to be dangerous, but I wasn't passive. I was patient. And patience, when it breaks, doesn't yell. It subtracts, quietly, precisely, until the other person realizes they've been left behind, not with a scream, but with a shrug. By Monday, her tone had shifted. No more smug emojis or one-line texts. Now it was full paragraphs, passive-aggressive concern, the kind of messages that start with "just wondering" and end with veiled threats. She expected my silence to break. It didn't. Instead, her world started to, not loudly, not all at once, but with the steady snap of thin, critical lines she hadn't realized she was standing on. It started with Marvin, our financial advisor of 8 years. She called, cheerful but firm, asking him to unblock whatever Marcus thought he was doing. His assistant politely informed her Marvin was unavailable. For the week, no explanation, just unavailable. She tried our estate attorney next. We had met with him 3 years ago after my father died, mostly to sort out power of attorney and inheritance stuff. She always treated him like a backup plan. She called, asked about resuming access to shared assets. He paused, then said, "Mrs. Rhodes, Marcus submitted a formal request to freeze all joint asset transactions pending revision of beneficiaries and ownership status." Revision of what? I'm not at liberty to elaborate. I suggest retaining independent counsel. Click. That one word, independent, hit her like a slap. She was used to sharing everything, not out of love, but out of control. She liked having access, passwords, schedules, contacts. Her domain wasn't affection, it was coordination. So she checked the shared Google Calendar next. Usually it looked like a well-oiled machine. Reminders for her spa sessions, car service appointments, her tennis club events, even recurring self-care Fridays marked in soft pink. Now, grayed out. Canceled. The massage therapist had emailed an apology. Payment failed. The detailing shop left a voicemail. "Hey, Mrs. Rhodes, just letting you know your regular service has been suspended, card declined," and Mr. Rhodes mentioned a pause in billing. At first, she thought it was a glitch. Then she walked into the hallway and saw the envelope. Plain white. Her name in my handwriting. Inside were 3 documents. Canceled automatic payments. Not bills. Not threats. Just receipts of deletion. Lux Spa annual membership. Hamilton Ridge golf and social dues. West Point Motors monthly premium plan. All in her name. All previously deducted without her noticing. She had never once asked who paid what. Why would she? The coffee just appeared. The tires just rotated. The facials just happened. Now it was all gone. like magic, reversed. She stood there in the hallway in silence, holding the documents like they were written in a language she hadn't studied. She tried to call her friend Elaine, no answer. Texted her sister, left on read. Even the silence had started answering her. She opened the home office cabinet. The folder labeled Rhodes Joint was still there, but the contents were missing. Just an empty manila shell with a single sticky note inside. On it, in my handwriting, routine reset, you've been unsubscribed. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even cruel. It was clinical, precise, the way she liked her calendar. Only now it wasn't hers anymore. The comforts of her empire weren't being burned. They were being refunded. Piece by piece, her kingdom of conveniences was being recalled, and she couldn't even find the return slip. By Tuesday afternoon, the mirror started talking back. Not literally, of course, but in that cracked, quiet way where someone who used to feel in control starts realizing the stage has been shifted beneath their feet. She stood there at her vanity, scrolling through her texts with her bottom lip tucked in, trying to find someone, anyone, who'd validate her outrage. The "can you believe this" messages had gone unanswered. Even the usual group chat of suburban snipers, her gossip circle, her war council, had gone oddly mute, except for one, Darla, her best friend since high school, bridesmaid at our wedding, godmother to our oldest, the woman who once helped her fake an alibi when she stayed overnight in a hotel and didn't want questions. Darla had always been a sure thing, so she called, and Darla picked up. But the voice was different, hesitant, measured. "Hey," my wife said, tone dipped and practiced casual. "So, I guess you heard?" A pause. "Sort of," Darla said. "I've been meaning to reach out." "Well, everything's fine," she said, drawing out the word. "Marcus is just being weird. Like, petty, you know? He's gone full spreadsheet psycho or something, blocking accounts, canceling stuff. Total overreaction." Another pause. "You know how he is." Silence. Then Darla cleared her throat. "Actually, I don't think I can. I don't want to be in the middle." My wife blinked. That wasn't the script. That wasn't how these calls went. In the middle. "Darla, what the hell are you talking about?" She heard a sigh on the other end, not annoyed, not aggressive, just tired. "Marcus reached out," Darla said. That made her sit down. "What?" "Yeah? A while ago. Just in case." My wife's voice sharpened. "What do you mean, just in case?" "He told me not to interfere, just said she'll try to control the story. Don't believe it. Watch what happens." The line went quiet. My wife blinked, swallowed, forced a laugh. "Oh, so what? He's planting seeds now? Making me out to be the villain in advance? That's rich. That's classic Marcus, always playing the martyr card when he didn't play anything," Darla interrupted. "He just calmly explained a few things. Said you'd probably reach out eventually. Said you'd twist it. That it wouldn't feel like twisting to you because you've done it for so long. It just feels like talking." That one hit hard. Darla kept going. "And look, I'm not saying I believe everything he said. I'm just saying the way he spoke, it didn't sound like a man cracking. It sounded like a man done waiting. Done waiting." The phrase echoed. "Okay," my wife snapped. "Fine. You want to believe his quiet little victim routine? Go ahead. I hope you enjoy the self-righteous parade when he sells the house out from under me." A longer pause this time. "Wait, did he not tell you?" "Tell me what?" Darla's silence said enough. She was out of the loop too, but not surprised, which made it worse. "I have to go," Darla said softly. I hope you figure things out." The call ended. My wife sat there, phone still in her hand, but suddenly it felt like holding a brick. Heavy, useless. She opened her contacts again, scrolled, tried calling Jenna, went to voicemail. "Lisa, sorry, can't talk right now." Her cousin Melody. "Oh, I actually have to call you back." No one was biting. No one was rushing to carry her version of events into battle. That was the thing she never prepared for. Silence. Not just mine, but everyone else's. Because I hadn't just moved first. I'd told the truth first. Quietly. Privately. Without performance or slander. Just the truth. Before she could twist it. Now the ground she built her reputation on, years of whispered alliances, strategic pity, fake vulnerability, was turning to dust beneath her stilettos. And for the first time in a very long time, she didn't know who was still on her side, or if anyone ever really had been. The knock on the door was sharp and impersonal, two quick raps and a pause like someone who wasn't staying long. She expected it to be a delivery, a return, maybe. Something routine. Instead, it was a man in a gray jacket holding a slim rectangular parcel and a clipboard. Delivery for Mrs. Rhodes, he said. Signature required. She barely looked at the return address, some law office in another county. She scrawled her name and took the manila envelope with a sarcastic "thanks for ruining my morning," even though it was already past noon and her coffee had gone cold hours ago, untouched. She shut the door, flipped the lock, and padded barefoot into the living room, tearing the adhesive open with one hand and tossing the packaging aside like it didn't matter. She was halfway into a text to Darla, round two, less friendly this time, when her thumb stopped on the screen. She pulled out the stack of papers. The top page was stamped, "Petition for separation of assets." Her stomach didn't drop. It froze. That slow, creeping cold that doesn't register until it's behind your ribs. The second document was worse. Affidavit of emotional cruelty and infidelity. Notarized. Signed. Dated. She blinked. Flipped again. Photographs. Not just any photos. Surveillance stills. Crisp, time-stamped black and white, but unmistakably her, standing in the lobby of the Glen Cove Hotel, laughing, leaning in too close to a man whose face was partially turned, but she knew who it was. Of course she did. Another image, entering the elevator. Only one card was swiped. Another, leaving the next morning, hair up, clothes slightly disheveled, sunglasses on despite the overcast weather. She stared at one particular image, her standing by the concierge desk, checking in under a name that wasn't hers. A little lie for a little thrill. There was no yelling, no confrontation, no flurry of text messages the day after, no suspicious glances, just quiet. For 6 whole months. He'd had this the entire time. The edges of the page curled slightly in her hands. She felt like the room was tilting. The rug under her bare feet suddenly too soft, like it was mocking her. 6 months. She started breathing through her mouth, like it would make the timeline make more sense, like it would undo the fact that while she was rolling her eyes at him for forgetting the dry cleaning, he was quietly collecting evidence that could gut her life in one strike. This wasn't reactive. This wasn't revenge. This was architecture. She moved to the last page, a typed summary of incident dates, locations, behavioral patterns. At the bottom, one line stood out, bolded, italicized, unmistakably deliberate, prepared as standard documentation in the event of anticipatory misconduct. Anticipatory. Like he knew. She dropped the papers on the coffee table and sat down hard on the edge of the couch, unsure whether to scream or throw up. For years, she'd treated him like background noise, the provider, the placeholder, the dependable man who didn't make waves, didn't raise his voice, didn't interfere with her need for independence. But she had missed something critical. He didn't react like other men. He prepared, quietly, thoughtfully, patiently. And now, her entire story, the one she thought she could control with a few tears and half-truths, was outflanked before she even knew a war had started. She picked up her phone, hands shaking. The first number she dialed was the hotel. "Do you keep security footage?" she asked, voice trembling. The woman on the line said yes, that they had, in fact, received a request for it months ago from a legal representative with proper documentation. Was it used? There was a pause. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't disclose that." She hung up. He'd used it, and he hadn't even told her, because he didn't need to confront her anymore. He already had the story. He just waited for her to narrate the ending herself, loudly, proudly. And now it was admissible, documented, signed, dated. She wasn't just guilty. She was predictable. By Wednesday morning, desperation had eclipsed strategy. Her texts had become paragraphs. Paragraphs had turned into essays. Rambling rants, revisionist pleas, random questions about the dog, the mail, the weather, anything to get a response. Nothing came back. She called his sister again. No answer. Left a voicemail this time. Look, this is getting crazy, okay? I know he's upset, but he needs to talk to me like an adult. This ghosting thing, it's abusive. The irony didn't land, not even for her. She stared out the window for a long time, watching birds on the power line, trying to think. And then it hit her. His office. Of course. He couldn't fake that. She'd just go down there, catch him in the middle of some spreadsheet, and demand an explanation, face to face, eye contact. She could fix this. Spin it, remind him of everything they'd built, the history, the family, the legacy, as she liked to call it when she needed him to sign something expensive. She didn't dress casually. She dressed for battle. Neutral tones, subtle jewelry, not too much perfume, just enough to evoke nostalgia if he was feeling weak. Her makeup was soft but exact, the look of a woman trying to de-escalate without admitting fault, the look of someone who had always gotten her way in the end. She drove to the office, walked past the security desk without even glancing. Everyone there had known her for years, or so she thought. The receptionist blinked when she approached. "I'm here to see Marcus," she said, voice clipped but confident. The girl tilted her head. Young, new, didn't know the script. "I'm sorry, Marcus?" She rolled her eyes. "Marcus Rhodes. He's been in finance here for 23 years. Corner office, golf trophies. Smells like cedar and old school guilt." The girl glanced at her screen, clicked a few times, then looked up. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Mr. Rhodes doesn't work here anymore." Her blood chilled. "What?" "He retired. Quietly. 3 weeks ago." "Retired?" Without telling her. She laughed, short and bitter. No, he couldn't have. We didn't even talk about retirement yet. He was still maxing out his Roth contributions. He hasn't. This must be a mistake." The receptionist, awkward now, stood and walked over to the side cabinet, pulled a small envelope from a drawer, handed it over like it was radioactive. "HR left this in case you came by." Inside, a printed email. From HR to Marcus. "As requested, your early retirement will be processed with no formal announcement or office gathering. Your severance has been transferred to the designated private account." Designated private account. She sat in the lobby chair, staring at the page like it had insulted her. She called HR directly. A woman named Marlene picked up. "Yes, Mrs. Rhodes, we processed the request 3 weeks ago. Everything was signed, sealed, and approved through legal. His pension and benefits have been redirected as instructed." "To what?" "I'm afraid I can't disclose that." "Did he at least say why?" A pause. "Just that he had something important to finish. Personally." Personally. She hung up without saying goodbye, walked back to her car like a shadow, sat behind the wheel for 15 minutes, engine off. Her fingers hovered above the call button to their tax advisor, then stopped. She realized she didn't know if Marcus had already spoken to him too, because Marcus hadn't just retired from his job. He'd retired from her life. With precision. She always thought he was too dull to disappear, but he hadn't disappeared. He'd evacuated. Quietly. Completely. Without ceremony. She checked the calendar on her phone again. No entry for his retirement, no hint, not even a joke about escaping the Monday meetings. He had slipped out from under her story without even mussing the drapes. And now, for the first time in 2 decades, she wasn't the narrator anymore. She was just another character he'd quietly written out. Thursday began with a wail from the driveway, the sound no self-important suburban woman ever expects to hear in her own front yard, a tow truck's hydraulic lift grumbling beneath her luxury sedan. By the time she ran outside in slippers and a bathrobe, the driver had already clipped the rear wheels and started the slow tilt. "Wait, what are you doing?" He didn't even flinch. "Payment's 92 days overdue, ma'am." "That's impossible," she hissed. "We're on auto pay." He tapped a tablet and showed her the screen. Payment method declined. Twice. Final notice mailed to a P.O. box she didn't recognize. Registered under Marcus's name. "You can call the number on the invoice," he said flatly. "Or you can pay now. $1,120. Plus daily storage." She didn't pay. She just watched as the car, Her last illusion of independence rolled away with a whimper and a cloud of dust. Back inside, she tore through drawers and files looking for answers. Any answers. That's when she found the key. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't even tucked away cleverly. Just sitting in the pocket of an old coat she hadn't worn since February. Brass. Cold. Engraved with one word and three numbers. Unit 547. At first, she assumed it was storage for seasonal junk. Decorations, maybe. Or tax records. But curiosity mixed with rising dread, and within the hour she was calling around to local facilities. Third call in, she hit pay dirt. Yes, the woman said. We have a Unit 547 registered under Marcus Rhodes, monthly lease, been active since 21. Can I access it? Well, you have the key? I do. Then yes, ma'am. You're listed on the visitor log. Secondary access. She didn't even change, just threw on jeans, a hoodie, and drove her backup car. An old Civic Marcus insisted they keep just in case. The irony scraped like sandpaper now. The storage facility was plain, concrete, anonymous. She parked, showed her ID, walked down the fluorescent-lit corridor, counting the numbers until she reached it. Unit 547. The key turned without resistance. The door rolled up smoothly, and what she saw inside didn't belong to any world she thought she controlled. It wasn't junk, or holiday lights, or outdated tech. It was an archive. One chair, one folding desk, one clip lamp, 12 labeled boxes, pre-99, her emails, camera logs, copies legal, counsel notes, joint statements, redacted, photos, originals. Each label was written in his handwriting. Neat, precise, no drama, no accusation, just documentation. There was a calendar on the wall, cheap paper, pinned with thumbtacks. Every day from the first of the year to yesterday had an X over it, black Sharpie, no gaps, no breaks, just methodical erasure of time. Under today's empty box was a sticky note, yellow, slanted handwriting. Contingency plan, executed. She stood there, suddenly aware of the hum of the lamp, the faint echo of her breath in the concrete room, the goosebumps crawling up her spine. He had built this, not out of rage, not out of ego, out of pattern recognition. He hadn't just suspected her. He had prepared for her, for years, quietly, diligently, like a man who'd studied a fault line long before the quake. She opened the box labeled her emails. Inside were printed copies, thousands. Conversations she thought were deleted, threads with her friends, booking confirmations, flirty exchanges with names she didn't even remember. How did he get these? The box labeled camera logs held hard drives. 2, labeled by date ranges, security footage backups, probably from the house, the cabin, the hotel lobbies. Another box, copies legal, was filled with printed contracts, originals, addendums, even prenup clauses she'd long forgotten. Several were highlighted, margins annotated. Her stomach turned. This wasn't revenge. This was an exit protocol. Not a man striking back in a moment of hurt, but a man who'd spent years mapping the labyrinth and finally found the lever that crumbled it all from within. And now she stood there, in the dark, holding a key she'd carried unknowingly, reading files written in the ink of her own arrogance. She thought he'd always be too tired, too compliant, too dull to strike back. But Marcus wasn't striking, he was finishing. The meeting was set for Friday morning, an anonymous room in a downtown bank branch that reeked of printer toner and indifference. Beige walls, scuffed tile floor, one flickering ceiling panel. No window, no warmth. Just a sterile place where numbers get reassigned and names get removed. Her lawyer arrived 10 minutes early. She came in 4 minutes late, deliberately, still tried to maintain control, through posture, through perfume, through the tight bun in her hair, and the stiff, crisp collar of her blouse. But her eyes were restless, her lipstick uneven, her composure borrowed. Marcus was already seated. He didn't look up when she entered, just opened a plain gray folder, slid it across the table without a word, and leaned back. Hands folded, calm. She stared at the folder for a beat too long, then opened it. What she found inside hit harder than any confrontation could have. because it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't accusatory, it was legal. First page, updated beneficiary assignment, estate of Marcus Rhodes. Her name was gone. Second page, power of attorney, revoked. Third, medical proxy, removed. Next, primary residence title transfer, executed. And then trust reallocation directive, beneficiaries amended. Her name wasn't anywhere, not even in the footnotes. It was as if she'd been deleted. Her nails dug into the table's edge. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "It was just one night." He finally looked up, eyes level, voice quiet. "It was one truth." She scoffed. "Don't get poetic with me." He didn't flinch. One truth that confirmed years of suspicion, years of silence, years of asking myself if I was crazy or if I was just inconvenient. She leaned forward. "I made one mistake." "No," he interrupted. "You made one confession. After 1,000 cuts." She hissed through her teeth. "You can't just erase me." He stood, slowly, deliberately, gathered his coat with the same precision he'd once reserved for balancing ledgers or folding holiday linens. "I didn't erase you," he said. "You erased yourself." She opened her mouth. Too late. He finished buttoning his coat. "I just filed the paperwork." Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably beside her but said nothing, because what could he say? Everything was clean, ironclad, pre-negotiated, filed through legal channels she hadn't even known existed. Marcus walked to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. Without turning back, he added, "This meeting wasn't for negotiation. It was courtesy." Then he left. The room felt smaller when the door clicked shut behind him. She sat motionless, staring at her own reflection in the glossy black surface of the table, her lipstick now smudged at the corner. She wanted a scene. She wanted a fight. She wanted him to scream or cry or accuse, something she could manipulate, spin, react to, but he had denied her even that. No dramatic public shaming, no family ambush, no social media exposure. He hadn't needed to humiliate her, because by the time she realized she was losing the game, he had already walked off the field, and she was still clapping for a crowd that had stopped watching. She woke up Saturday in full performance mode, hair curled, face painted into something resembling control, the kind of look you wear not because you feel powerful, but because you hope the mirror believes it before anyone else calls your bluff. She needed to salvage the narrative, fast, so she started making calls. First, his sister, the one she used to mock behind closed doors as Marcus's little shadow. She dialed, tried to sound warm. "Hey, I know things have gotten messy, but I just wanted to say it's not what it looks like. Marcus is confused and he's hurting, obviously, but he's not exactly innocent here either, you know?" There was a pause. Then his sister replied, flatly, "He told me everything, months ago." Her tone wasn't cold. It was factual, like she'd already processed it and moved on. Click. She moved to the next call, his former boss at the firm, the man who once called her a force at the company holiday party. "Hey, Richard," she began, syrupy sweet. "I think Marcus is having some sort of midlife moment. I'm worried about him. He's been making all these decisions, isolating himself. I just want to make sure he's okay." Richard didn't miss a beat. "He briefed me back in February, told me not to intervene, said if you called, just to remind you he's not spiraling, he's executing." She nearly dropped the phone. She tried one more. Pastor Williams, he had officiated their vow renewal 10 years ago. He once called them an anchor couple. During a sermon, she dialed his private line, confident he'd listen. But when he answered, he sighed softly before she even finished her first sentence. "I know, child. Marcus came to see me months ago." She froze. "I told him to seek peace, even if it meant distance. He's not angry, dear. He's free." She hung up mid-sentence. The panic wasn't creeping anymore. It was slamming her full in the chest now. Her hands shook. She knocked over a water glass in the kitchen and let it shatter. Every single person she thought she could spin had already heard the truth. On his terms. He hadn't gone scorched earth. He'd gone quiet burn. And while she kept playing to an imaginary audience, the stage had been dismantled plank by plank. She needed to reset, regroup. She opened the drawer where they kept the property documents. Her fallback plan had always been the house, her last castle. She'd once told a friend he wouldn't dare touch the house. It's my hill to die on. Inside the drawer, she found an envelope. One page, a legal transfer of deed, sale finalized 2 weeks ago, executed by Marcus. Buyer listed as a limited trust. Transfer notarized. Funds received. She flipped it over. One line, handwritten in calm black ink. You always wanted the last word. Now you've got it. Alone. No insults. No vitriol, just punctuation. The marble floor suddenly felt too cold beneath her bare feet. She walked to the front door, opened it, looked at the street like maybe he'd be there, waiting. He wasn't, just silence. No car, no mail, no movement. She realized in that moment that Marcus didn't vanish from her life. He evicted himself, voluntarily, strategically, and without ever asking her permission. There were no more versions of the story to pitch. No one left to believe her spin, no sympathetic ears, no curated narrative, just an empty house she no longer owned. And the echo of a man she'd never really understood until it was far, far too late. She opened her eyes to the sound of nothing, no distant humming of the coffee grinder, no kettle whistling, no footsteps along the hallway with those subtle little pauses he always made when trying not to wake her. The morning sun pooled on the hardwood floor with its usual indifference, but everything else felt off, suspended, like the house had exhaled and refused to inhale again. She waited in bed a moment longer, expecting what exactly? A gesture? A mistake? Some signal that this wasn't permanent, that the storm had passed and things would return to difficult but manageable. But the silence didn't end, it deepened. She rose, wrapped herself in the robe that still smelled like lavender from the overpriced detergent she always insisted on. The house was still, too still. Even the dog, his dog, who'd chosen her lap less and less over the years, wasn't around. Downstairs, she walked into the kitchen. No coffee waiting, no mug set aside for her, no faint heat in the air from the stove, no newspaper folded neatly on the counter, curated to her favorite sections like he'd done every morning without being asked. Just one thing sat there. A single ceramic mug, empty. Inside it, a folded sheet of paper, no envelope, no signature, just typewritten text, precise and sterile. Transfer of car title, filed, list of personal items, boxed and stored in Unit 547, paid through end of year. Utilities, all contracts canceled or transferred, primary residence sold, possession relinquished next Friday, no emotion, no explanation, just facts. And at the bottom, one final sentence. I stayed quiet so you'd speak freely. Now you've spoken. And I've listened. Her hand trembled as she refolded the paper, placed it back in the cup. She didn't cry. Couldn't. Her body felt too brittle for that now, like glass stretched too thin over the years, waiting for a sharp enough sound to finally shatter it. She leaned against the cold kitchen counter, fingers resting on the tile where his keys used to be. Everything was gone. Not just the things, but the roles, the rituals, the background music of a life she assumed would never fully end, just bend. She thought she'd always have the final word, that she could out-talk, outlast, out-manipulate any fallout. She mistook his silence for softness. She thought she could always win by default. But Marcus hadn't yelled, he hadn't begged, he hadn't even argued. He'd just left, fully, finally, with the exact precision of a man who had waited until there was nothing left to salvage, not because he was careless, but because he'd counted every last brick she pulled out from under them. She walked back through the house, her steps echoing now in the empty spaces where furniture used to be. Photos taken down, closet half empty, files removed. Even the damn scent of him, cedar, paper, and coffee, was gone. It wasn't abandonment. It was completion. She sat down in the living room. No TV, no phone, just her, alone in the quiet. She always said silence was weakness. Now it was the loudest thing in the world.